Now to discuss the topic first, let me introduce Ambassador Chu Jin-chun, Chinese Ambassador to Nigeria. Excellency, Kwenyelereto, and you've been here.
Thank you for having me. I'm
Thank you.
very delighted today to have this opportunity to have a talk with you all.
Thank you very much. We also have in our studio Charles Onunaiju, Director of Center for China Studies of Nigeria. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you.
All right, and also here with us in the studios is Dr. Sharif Gale Ibrahim. He's an Associate Professor of Political Science and International Relations at the University of Abuja. Dr. Sharif, pleasure to have you on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you for having me. Good morning, Nigeria.
Okay, let's begin with His Excellency, the Ambassador of the People's Republic of China to Nigeria. Congratulations on your Independence Day anniversary, which was last Friday, same as Nigeria's. And of course, this year we are marking 50 years of formal diplomatic ties between Nigeria and China. How warm or cordial is our relationship?
I'm very happy to share my feeling with Nigerians, and this is really a good opportunity for the 14th Chinese ambassador to Nigeria. You just mentioned my predecessor has done a lot and to grow the relationship between the two great countries. I want to let you know we have built a very profound, healthy bilateral relationships, and we don't have fundamental problems. I do believe that during the past 50 years, this year is very special. The two countries are celebrating the 50 years anniversary of the bilateral ties. So what I'm thinking for the next 50 years, this is my job. How can I inherit my predecessors, including Nigeria side, and to build more and healthy, profound relationship in the coming 50 years?
In specific terms, Excellency, what would you say have been the achievements in the past 50 years of this relationship? How mutual has this relationship been?
I can give you example. During the past 50 years, we really support the core interest of the two countries. Politically speaking, China and Nigeria, we support each other. We have a lot of things in commonality. You just mentioned you have your Independence Day. We have our National Day, the same day, October 1st. And also it's very, very important for China to do things together internationally. That means we support, do business internationally, we support each other. For example, we support your Madame Vela as a World WTO, and also we support in New York and in Geneva. So most important things about economic sectors. Everybody know Chinese company has done a lot to try to improve the situation in Nigeria, especially in the infrastructure. I can let you know everybody, whatever president and high-ranking official in Nigeria, they recognize the joint work, the contribution from Chinese side to the infrastructure sector, especially about railway. I found yesterday the Chinese CCTV also broadcast the railway. The first very topic, the good news for China and Nigeria is about the BRI initiative. They have the coverage about the Nigeria from Lagos to Ibadan railway.
Okay, thank you very much, Ambassador Chun. We'll come back to you shortly. Let's bring in now Charles Onunaiju, who is Director of the Center for China Studies here in Nigeria. You are the guru, as it were, in these matters. What is your assessment of Sino-Nigeria relations 50 years on?
Well, it's been, thank you for this, my brother Kinsley. It's been a very exciting journey. I'll tell you, precisely 8 months after the two countries established diplomatic relations in 1971, In October, Nigeria joined the rest of 76 African countries at the United Nations to restore the lawful seat of the People's Republic of China. Nigeria was among the 26 countries and among 76 others to have China restored to her lawful seat, because China also was a founding member of the United Nations, but for power politics and other destruction, it was kept away from the world body. And in 1971, 18th of October, China was restored, and Nigeria actively participated in that. And I remember Chairman Mao was ever very excited. He said it was our African brothers that supported to take us back to the United Nations. I think the Chinese never forget that, you know. And of course, since then, Nigeria and China relation has been on a steady rise. In 1974, General Gowon, Nigerian head of state, made official visit to China, met with Chinese leaders. Since then, it's been great exchanges until in the early 90s, when it entered a new period, a new historical period of practical, pragmatic cooperation that delivers on tangible, practical issues. As His Excellency has just observed, since then, it's been a game-changing situation in our bilateral relation. There has been a great and very important input from the Chinese side on building our key national aggregate, the railway, the power sector, harbor trade. It's been a very interesting journey. And in my view, it is still a work in progress. Despite the miles we have arrived, there is still more to do. And like His Excellency suggested, great vision for the next 50 years means that we are at a new historic starting point of our bilateral relation.
Well, thank you so much, Onunaiju. Let's hear your opening salvo, Dr. Sharif Gali Ibrahim, that is. The Sino-Nigeria, relations has been on for over 50 years now, and of course we share a lot in this regard. Talking about specifically why we're here this morning, looking at this relationship, and then that very day we share, October 1. Against the background of what Charles Onunaiju said and His Excellency, what would you add, or what would you say, or how good has this relationship been over the past 50 years?
Thank you for having me with the question. If you look at the Sino-Nigeria bilateral ties, incepting from 1971, you come to understand that Nigerians are not oblivious of the enslavement of Africa by a particular people, as well as the colonization of the continent and neo-colonization era, which ensued. You come to understand that Africans and Nigerians have discovered a partner, albeit since in the 1950s or in the 50s, there was a kind of general meeting between African people and Asians. And the Chinese also pioneered this particular meeting in Bandung. This actually served as the starting point of this particular relationship. So as the relationship continued to actually unfold, especially from 1971, you discovered that it has been built based on the principles of constructivism. That is, you have a mutual interest, because China and Nigeria come to have and develop a common interest. And what is that particular interest is to achieve greater height and development through this particular international cooperation. Then apart from this, we come to actually develop a common identity. Common identity in the sense that belonging to the developing economies, of the world, even having China as the most advanced developing world, you come to understand that this particular identity has continued to actually grow. And that is why when he made mention of the United Nations, you discover that we support each other at the United Nations. Then apart from this, we also continue to actually nurse a greater economic tie, that actually midwife the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation, which is FOCAC, in which the leaders of Africa and China meet in every 3 years, sometimes in Africa, sometimes in Beijing. So apart from this, there is also one major principle that constitutes and defines China-Nigeria bilateral ties, which we do not see each other as a threat. And that is why the relationship has continued to actually grow and develop. So from this particular point of view, the celebration of the, national days, of China, which started on the 1st of October 1949 and Nigeria 1st October 1960, you discover that the two, there is a kind of a gap because China first celebrated or proclaimed that particular national day in 1949, while after 11 years, Nigeria actually followed suit. So the issue here is that the little gap there, which China was able to take up, especially in 1978, and Nigeria is still actually struggling. So we actually argue that there are so many things that we can actually learn in this particular trend and development so that to actually well equip ourselves, in the socio-economic as well as political journeys, of the two giants in Africa and in China. So, but there is one major thing I want to mention here, which is the new phase of Sino-Nigeria relations. And what is that particular new phase? The new phase is the coming of Ambassador Sui Jianchun, to Nigeria, which has completely redefined Sino-Nigeria relations, especially when you critically look at the 5Gs. And this 5Gs is something that will critically revolutionize Nigeria's political and economic development. If really the government of Nigeria will actually look at this particular 5Gs, because they are a kind of an abridged version of the Chinese development plans, that could be applied to Nigeria for Nigeria to historically change, in its economic and political journey. But we have to carefully take this, and we also have to seriously look at the benefits that are actually into this particular 5Gs. Why? Because we've had development plans, hitherto formulated and formed, in order to aid in the development of this particular entity. But as a result of political laxity, as well as negligence in the implementation and execution of these particular development plans, these development plans have actually experienced policy miscarriage, and that is why they have not been achieved. All the visions, the Vision 2010, Vision 2020, and the rest of them, I think there is a kind of regression, in this particular development. So this particular new phase is the coming of His Excellency Ambassador Sui Jianchun, which is going to be a great revolution. But it's only if you critically sit down and look at it, the 5 goals, the priorities, as well as the guarantees. That is the 5 goals looking at the political consonance, looking at the economic cooperation, looking at the military collaboration, international coordination, as well as people's communication. So apart from this, you also look at the infrastructure, the issue of ICT, the issue of industry, investment, and the rest of them. Then apart from this, you also look at security, structure, speed, synergy, supervision. Then apart from this, you also look at the thought, which could be derived from the central government itself, then the provincial government, as well as non-governmental organizations. You look at talent, when you actually co-opt the talent of Nigerians, into the cultural industry of Nigeria for Nigeria to generate revenue. You also look at technology, looking at the 5G, which he promised. And China has been a pioneer of the 5G. Throughout the history of information technology, China has been the first entity to have actually technologically invented the 5G. Even the Western world, the Western advanced societies have not been able to do that. So if in this particular consonance, China is able to actually introduce the 5G technology to Nigeria, I think it's something that will actually take us to a new page, in our history. Then tradition, looking at
I'm just
tradition.
wondering, let's pause you in the meantime, Dr. Sharif. We'll return so that we can further explore some of the key points that you have raised. But I just want to get back to Ambassador Chun. At the time Nigeria and China established formal diplomatic relations 50 years ago, China was a developing country, if not a poor country. Until 1978, and following, of course, the wonderful works of Deng Xiaoping, today now, China is a superpower, second largest economy in the world. You've moved out hundreds of millions of people out of poverty, and the voice of China is respected worldwide. What do you find in our relationship? Because in a sense, there are certain attributes that Nigeria exhibits today, which China also used to have. What is it that you see in terms of our relationship that will be mutually beneficial so that Nigeria also gains its own marker?
Thank you. This is really an important question. Before answering this question, I would like to highlight 3 points. We Chinese understand, we Chinese are grateful to Nigerians. And just Mr. Just mentioned that 3.1 is about restore China in the UN seat. Second, support One China policy. The third point is about support the international organization, for example, human rights, about the core interest. We got support from Nigeria. We thank Nigerian government and Nigerian people to work with China to uphold the principle, to uphold the international standard and norm. Back to your question, I really want to share with you something about China, and I do believe there is a need, there is a possibility the 2 countries can do things and to make a difference. You just mentioned that China, since the year 1978, the reform and open policy by Mr. Deng Xiaoping. So I found that really we can get the lessons and the cases could be applied in Nigeria. For me, only half years in Abuja, I try my best to read, to listen, to watch what I'm thinking. How can we do things together? You just mentioned a lot of attributes. China is #1 in terms of population all over the world, and also is the very, very important powers in the Asian Pacific countries. Nigeria is #1 in terms of population in Africa, and also is the biggest #1 economy. But I found that really China has done a lot. Since the founding of New China, we're also struggling, how can we find a way, the first to grow the economy. So because of the open policy, reform policy, China, we are happy to share with you the Chinese President Xi Jinping this February 25th declared to the international community, China has accomplished a unprecedented humankind, this historic becomes a great achievement to the eradication of extreme poverty. So I'm thinking, how can I do something? Being the 14th Chinese ambassador, this is just Dr. Professor Yusuf Sharif told us that I try to make a strategy for the 2 countries for the next 50 years. We cannot only perform the solo or duet, we like to perform symphony. Because symphony, we need orchestra. We need the different instrument, string instrument, percussion, and also we have the woodwind instrument. So I want to give you a very good example about how can we accomplish this important job. I know by the end of 2030, your goal is to realize the eradication of extreme poverty. We have nearly 100 million people here in Nigeria. So I'm thinking about how can we let the people get out of the poverty. We just discussed about the Chinese the technology, Chinese product. I'm working hard to try to bring Chinese technology here. For example, there is a clash in Nigeria between the herdsmen and the farmers. How can we find a way to solve this problem? So China, we have we call it 菌草, Chinese pronounce a 菌草. It's a kind of grass. And if we cultivate this grass, give us three things. One thing is about we could have more forage to feed the cattle. The second, we can use this grass to grow the mushroom for food for the people. And third, we can use this grass to protect our environment. In the African continent, I know some countries, about 100 countries using this technology. So I'm thinking that most important for me in the economic sectors, how can we find a way to give the opportunity to Nigerian young people? I'm thinking that after COVID-19, how we can get some young people to go to China, to the rural areas, to let them know how Chinese, the CPC Communist Party, how China from central level to the state level, to the local level, to find a way to get the eradication of poverty. We do have a lot of policy, program, project. I think that we can apply this successful stories to Nigeria. So you just mentioned really we are struggling nearly 100 years. We should be patient because also Nigeria, since independence in 1960, so I have great faith, great confidence. If we can do things together, this is not only about Nigeria side, it's also about China, because my personal belief, if we work together, not only benefiting Nigeria, but also benefiting China, because the interdependence of the two countries, I do believe we can do big things. So this you just mentioned, the biggest thing for me is thinking about political sector. I just mentioned that really without the political sector, without the political consonance, this is the banner of the two countries. How can we keep and grow the momentum of political cooperation domestically and economically? Internationally, the most important sectors is about economic cooperation. So in this area, poverty reduction really is the major task, not only for Nigerian people, for Nigerian government, also is for the human beings.
Well, thank you so much, Ambassador. Let's hear from Charles Onunaiju. You've heard what the ambassador said, of course, how they were able to, get out of extreme poverty, I think specifically in those last year or thereabout, and how they can really assist in trying to, get Nigeria out of this. Although he said China has been struggling for over 100 years. It all takes patience and good leadership to get there. Now, do you see this Sino-Nigeria relation, moving in that direction? I'm not saying that we should at least be patient for another 100 years, but we really have to be fast enough in trying to catch up.
Yes, of course, the advantage we have is that we have, of course, we have the China example, which means we can move a lot more faster. And we have, for the first time, in my view, we have a partner that is both willing and able to support our pace, the increase in our pace to overcome these challenges. In the past, we've had partners, some are willing but not able, some are able but not willing. But in China, we have a partner that is both willing and able. I think we can leverage, in my view, what I consider a historic opportunity to move faster. And the issue of eradication of poverty, 770 million rural residents taken out of poverty, is very significant and has quite a lot of implication for us. One is poverty is not a fate, it's not a destiny. It cannot be, it can be overcome. That is the message China sent out to the world, especially to Africa and more importantly to Nigeria. It can be overcome. President Buhari also has repeatedly emphasized that he wished to see 100 million Nigerians taken out of poverty within a short period. For me, sharing experiences, comparing notes, and engaging strategies, which has worked for the Chinese, will be absolutely important in this journey of ending poverty, ending absolute poverty. Poverty in itself is an arrest of national human development. You know, so when you unlock the latent energy of poor people, they become net wealth creators, and that could speed up your pace of development. Poverty alleviation, eradication is not humanitarian. It's a policy issue that every angle of the government. In the case of China, President Xi made over 14 provincial level visits to extreme rural, impoverished areas, held over 69 national level meetings, and over 2 million senior officials, party cadres were deployed to the front line in the rural communities to engage poverty. And that is the challenge. Build capacity is not, of course, cash handout could be necessary, but the most significant, the turning point is building capacity. Because poverty is simply people's inability to realize their potential on account of lack of capacity. So by the time you fill in the vacuum of capacity, he moves, it becomes self-propelling. So this is the challenge. China's experience is important. Like the Chinese will always say, is not, must not copy mechanically. You can contextualize in your own experience, your own environment, but at least taking the broad lessons of this process. So I think Ambassador Tu has brought very major initiative, which I believe we can leverage. Like we say in Africa, it takes 2 hands to clap. No matter the goodwill of our Chinese friends, except we also engage robustly with focus on a sustainable basis, not one-off, not today. You must focus, keep the momentum going, and to draw strategic lessons. The Chinese are very, very good at specifics, dealing with specific and practicals. And this is the area where we must get up and focus on practicals, focus on sustainability, focus on policy continuity. That is the issue. So I believe that with the vision of Ambassador Tui, who has drawn up the 5Gs, like my good friend Professor Cherif has mentioned, we also can leverage on this enormous goodwill. Of course, the Chinese are very interested in ending poverty in Africa because they understood very well that the continuous prosperity of China will also depend on draining the swamp of global poverty. China cannot be an island of prosperity in the midst of global poverty. So it links directly her continual prosperity with the prosperity of the rest of the world, especially Africa. And when you talk of Africa, Nigeria is the starting point. So we can see the vigor, the insight, the practical roadmap that the Chinese have drawn up so that we can meet and drive this process. So I believe, and of course, like Ambassador Tu has said, the kind of how you drive the pace of your development depends also on the social force driving it, the vision of the social force, its insight. And in the case of China, the Communist Party of China has been the central force in driving this process. And of course, we cannot create a Communist Party of China in Nigeria. But the experience of that party in driving an integrated development, in mobilizing national resources, in mobilizing national goodwill, in generating substantive consensus, building consensus through cooperation, through coordination, through engagement and consultation can benefit us in the effort to drive our pace in ending poverty or alleviating it to a substantial point. But the point has been made that poverty can be conquered, poverty can be eliminated. It's not a fate, it's not a destiny. And the Chinese have demonstrated that human will can triumph over poverty despite how many years it's been with us.
All right, Charles, thanks a lot. Let me return to Ambassador Chu. Ambassador Chu, two key points that you have highlighted in your last response, to which Charles has also added very significant points. One, poverty elimination. And two, an immediate concern, conflict resolution. That's farmers and herders. How much conversation are you having with Nigeria and Nigerians on this? And what feedback are you getting? Is the response enthusiastic?
I think these two big issues, eradication poverty, I discussed with a lot of people here in Nigeria. And we try to find a way because the root cause, for example, security, I want to share with you about insecurity situation here. This is really everybody is concerned about the current situation. I do believe that if we find the right way, for example, I want to share with you the first about how can we get support of the people. How can we, you just mentioned the party, CPC, how can we, the party, work together to try to fight against the insecurity cases or situation, the clash or conflict between the farmers and the herdsmen, and also how can we respect and motivate the police, they are on the front line, and fourth, how can we find a good partner, competent, willingness, and also capable or the responsible partner international, not only from European countries, African countries, US side, and also China. I do believe we need reliable partner to work together. The fifth is about the prosecution. How can we let them, the criminals, all the other peoples could be prosecuted? This is relating to the judicial system. But the most important thing I want to share with you, the root cause is poverty. We had experience in Chinese history. So you just mentioned we elevate or they get the nearly 800 people out of poverty, especially since 2012. The Chinese President Xi Jinping took office. At that time, we have nearly 100 million people living below the poverty line, just the situation in Nigeria. So we work hard and find a way. We just mentioned we mobilized nearly 3 million people to the rural areas. And also we mobilized the whole society from the central government, local government, from the business sectors, from the universities. And what I mean that, I think that how can we find a way to deal with the root cause, poverty? In my idea, the 5Gs, I'm thinking that really we can have to adopt a holistic, comprehensive, complete way. We cannot have a piecemeal approach. So that means we have to target the economic sectors, we have to target the security sectors, especially also about the human resources. Dr. Shirley mentioned that the thought exchange, talent cultivation. Most important things is about the treasure capitalization. Nigeria, we have abundant natural resources, human resources. As long as we have a strong will, I do believe we can make a difference. So we can use the technology, we can transcend our tradition, combined the combination of the traditional culture and the modern culture. So I want to share with you, really, I have a confidence if we, the two sides, could get a clear understanding, set clear specific goals. This is about 5G, the 5 goals. I want to share with you, I'm working with Nigeria government. So the first meeting we'll do October 11th to prepare for the first meeting between the two countries. I want to let you know the Chinese State Council of Foreign Minister visited Nigeria this January. The two sides have decided to establish bi-national commission. So the first meeting will be held in China. So what I have done, I'm very proud, I'm very happy that my idea I presented to 5G strategy. 5G strategy, just, you know, the main meaning of ideas. Why I use the GDP? People know GDP is a gross domestic product. It's a very important indicators of the national economy. But I put here the GDP, the growth, development, and the progress strategy. So in this strategy, the 5G means 5 goals. So just to mention the political consonants, that if we can have one voice to support each other, we have issues in China. For example, among the 5P permanent country in the UN system, China is still not united. We still have issues in Taiwan. So Nigeria supports China policy. So what I mean, in the core interest, Nigeria also have your own issues. We have to support each other. For example, non-interference. The two sides, small country, big country, we cannot afford to let interference. So that means we need political consonance. Economic cooperation, we just mentioned, we believe, my personal belief, Nigeria could and will be not only the #1 economy in whole African continent. I do believe Nigeria could be, will be the powerhouse of economic engine of the economic sectors. And in terms of military sections, also I want to share with you that the two sides are working together. Maybe later I can share with you specific information. Maybe here is not appropriate for me to share the detailed information between the military sector, security sectors. But I do believe there is a great momentum. The two sides work together in dealing with the security issues. International coordination is also one of the 5G. How can we do things internationally? In today's world, really, if we want to go far, you have to work together. You can go alone, maybe fast, but you cannot go farther. So that means the international coordination really is one of the 5G goals. The last is about the people's communication. I want to share with you the 7 togetherness. This is my thinking. If the two countries, the people could share the 7 togetherness, the first is about the unity. Nigeria, you have your family, your reunion, family unity. We have lots of things in common. Our unity of the family. This is the basic cell of society. Second, harmony. Third is peace. And the fourth is concordance. The fifth is consonance. The sixth is about the humanity. The last one is about the beauty. So I try to promote the ideas, let the two countries to work together to support these ideas. If we can achieve the unity, if we can achieve the harmony, if we can have the national peace, if we could strike on concordance and out consonance, and to realize humanity and beauty. So I think that really a lot of things. I'm very happy that I had the opportunity to share the ideas with you. Thank you.
Oh, well, great lady. That's really interesting, Ambassador Chui. It's a whole lot of a big idea you have. And I think I must say congratulations, if not double for that, having come up with that idea, and of course your independence anniversary. Dr. Sharif Ghali, you started this discussion on the 5Gs. And of course, you said specifically the coming of Ambassador Chui is more of a great blessing really to Nigeria and China, both countries, given the fact that he came up with these ideas. Now, you've heard him speak about the 5Gs, his own brainchild. And then do you see, the possibility of Nigerians and the Nigerian government keying in first and very firstly into these ideas, although he said it's not going to be, an easy thing to do, given the fact that moving singularly could take you really far, but when you go together, you get, far enough and then to your destination. Tell us more. What would you say about Sino-Nigeria relations in relation to the 5Gs?
Thank you so much. You see, when you critically look at the the 5 major goals identified by His Excellency, you understand that the political consonance can be achieved easily, but with a precondition. And what is that precondition? Is taking the idea of Xi Jinping himself when he says that never fail the people. And look at the people as your masters. We look at the people as our masters, and we are their servants. So when you don't fail the people, people will actually develop that particular national identity, because the political consonance is hinged on national identity, if I may paraphrase. The national identity is the citizenry should be able to identify themselves with the nation. You know, you are proudly Nigerian. If you go to China, for example, you see whenever there is a big event, economic, political, social, cultural, you see the citizens saying, Jungo Jayo, meaning China, go on, carry on. You understand? You see people holding the national flags, either the medium size, big or small size. You know, people are happy. They appreciate what the government does. You know, they appreciate about the political utility, what the government gives them, provides, you know, for them. So the national identity, you come back to Nigeria, you see Nigerians go abroad, they call themselves differently. They call other Nigerians Nigerians, you know, as they do not identify themselves with the particular country. So the impact of this, or this is as a result of what? Failing the people. Because if you fail the people, people will not actually develop that particular identity, sense of identity in them. You know, this is one. Then secondly, what His Excellency called the ethnic unity. Ethnic unity is what Nigeria has been able to achieve, you know, since independence, or like 100 years ago since the amalgamation. Because despite the woes of the civil war, Nigeria has remained one entity, one people. There has not been a practical cessation, you know, that succeeded. And people, despite or against all odds, Nigerians live together, you know, in their divergent, you know, differences. So this is another issue. Then the third issue, apart from looking at the national unity, ethnic unity, as well as you know, okay, we have harmony, you know, harmonious living. Because when you have people live in unity, and apart from this particular unity, they are now able to develop that particular sense of identity, then what comes is social harmony among these particular people. People will be happy, even though we belong to a multicultural and multivociferous entity, but people will actually have that particular sense of belonging and emotional ties as a result of what? As a result of not failing them. Because if you fail the people, people will actually find a way of showing their resentment as well as showing their grievances. And for you to be able to achieve what President Xi Jinping had actually theoretically, you know, accentuated, looking at the 4 comprehensives, for example, of achieving rule of law and party discipline. Because for a society, for you to be able to achieve such national unity, achieve national identity, you know, dealing with the 5 goals and political consonants, you must be able to deal with rule of law. You have to deepen rule of law. Rule of law in the sense that there has to be constitutionalism. There has to be what? You actually develop punitive measures against those who aberrate the Constitution. And this also translates into what President Xi Jinping identified as the 2 upholds. Why? Because you have to stick to the constitution of the land as identified by the lawmakers, the Central Committee of the Communist Party, and this should also be applied in Nigeria. Regardless of who you are, being a member of a political party, you have to make sure that you act, you think, you execute according to the decisions of that particular party. You represent the party which represent the people. So you don't actually make decisions contrary to the provisions of that particular political party. Why? Because you are nothing but a member of that particular political party. Then to achieve prosperity, you know, in order to achieve prosperity, you have to deepen reforms. You know, these particular reforms are also I think, hinge or enshrine in this particular 5Gs mentioned by His Excellency. Because if you look at, for example, modernization of agriculture, which also falls under the economic cooperation, you modernize agriculture, for example. You also develop technology. Apart from this, the identification of the national treasure, which presumably dealing with both human and natural resources. How do we harness these particular resources in order to achieve our goals? Because having a monocultural economy is not actually self-sufficient. Because if you look at the statistics, you know, as of 2020, Nigeria imported oil. You know, it spent more money in the importation of oil than the export of oil. You know, so how do you actually reconcile this without looking at other areas? He made mention of mining, you know, the non-oil sector. So I think for us to achieve this particular 5Gs, especially the political consonance, the economic cooperation, the military collaboration, as well as the international coordination, the foundation, the sine qua non is actually never fail the people. If you don't fail the people, you know, you make sure that our Mr. President made the pledge to uplift about 100 million Nigerians out of poverty. But what Nigerians see is the irony, because according to statistics, in next year, 2020, if adequate and necessary measures are not taken, there will be about 109 million Nigerians who will continue to actually be subjected into abject poverty. So I think there is the need to actually share this particular thought. And this thought must not only be upheld only by the central government in Nigeria, even the provincial government, you know, have to actually go by these particular principles and ideas, including non-governmental organizations, because in contemporary international system, we don't see only government taking the responsibility and obligations of actually making a greater contribution to the society as well as the international community. Non-governmental organizations, you know, play a significant role within the national economy. That is why if you go to Europe, for example, and America, you discover that the most sophisticated industries, you know, and companies that exist are not actually owned by the government, but rather by private organizations. So under regional integration, you know, coming together of Africa or at sub-regional level, for example, either from ECOWAS, SADC, IGAD, that is Intergovernmental Authority on Development, or even Central Africa Economic Cooperation, you discover that it's not just the intergovernmentalism that actually works. You are looking at non-governmental organizations that will actually contribute in especially the technical areas of integration. Okay. So to achieve this, definitely we have to look at the people as our masters, and we should never fail the people. Otherwise, that particular ethnic unity and political consonance will actually be missing.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sharif, for your elaboration on the issues. Charles, I asked the ambassador whether he was already having conversations around the issues of poverty eradication and dealing with aspects of conflict management and resolution, specifically farmers and herders, and what feedback he was getting. Well, he tried to explain, but there's also a key point that I would like you to speak to. Namely, there's often the weariness of transplantation of ideas from one political culture or political environment into another. In other words, be more concerned about your context and how it fits into that context, which was why I asked the question about whether it's having conversations. You rightly said that, look, we're not going to have a one-party system in Nigeria. But you've been talking about how the mechanics for China in realizing its objective of pulling out hundreds of millions out of extreme poverty, various meetings held by the president at the national level, at the regional level, at the cell level, XYZ, and the fact that there is harmony in all of that. But back home, you can see sometimes our antagonistic partisan politics can get in the way, which was why I asked the question about conversation. Whom are you speaking with at the moment, and what feedback are you getting? Is one party say this is not our program, another party say no, this is a federal government idea, this is my territory, this is federalism, X, Y, Z. How can we, because we're a federal structure and China isn't, so how can we leverage on the advantages of China and have a good fit into our federal system, bearing in mind that the ultimate goal is, one, eliminate poverty, make the environment safe and secure for the prosperity of all?
Yes, thank you. First, I would like to make the point that consultations has been at the very heart of China's political system since 1949. Actually, it was the Communist Party that proposed coalition of all social and political forces. And by the way, you have over 8 political parties in China. They are not party in competition. They are party in consultation and cooperation. So you can develop a mechanism for engagement, for building national consensus. And that is what happens in China. You have mechanism for engagement, for consultation, and then developing a framework of national consensus. So it is not a one-party state, it's a multi-party consultative democracy, consultative socialist democracy, where there is consultation across the board. And this is one key element. Despite the various parties, party is about the people, it's not about power. So you can build a mechanism for engagement, for consultation. It is not antithetical to competitive democratic process. You can have a mechanism for engagement across party board to generate consensus on key national issues and build key consensus on policy questions regarding things like eradicating poverty, regarding things like growing national power, focusing on key aggregates that engages your process to grow. So I think that is one element where we can also, because I believe that, yes, consultation is the key. No one political system can be translated to other. You must have your own context. But I believe that if we are to make significant progress and build policy initiative consistency, durability, and momentum that is necessary to achieve any meaningful result, you must have a platform for generating consensus. And I think that's what our political parties must address. Political parties must have a mechanism for building consensus. That is very important. They don't have to be the same. In China, they're not the same. You have different political parties. But the Communist Party of China historically is in the driving seat, but do not act with impunity, do not act on its own. It consults widely. That is the harmony you see in China political process. It's not because it bludgeons others, but because it consults others. That has been the tradition from the very first it's founded. It realized it does not have the monopoly of knowledge, that to drive the process of building a modern China, you must engage others. So that is why the acrimony we see elsewhere is not seen in China. It is not because there are no differences. There are differences, but adequate. In fact, the first political institution that was founded, the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, was a platform of all party people, ethnic nationality, professionals, overseas Chinese, and religious groups, ethnic minorities. They all have a platform to ventilate, engage, and build a consensus on key policy issues. That is the magic. It's not a rocket science. It's achievable here if only there is a political will to drive a consensus based on understanding of our national goal, that we must modernize. Our people must be out of poverty. We must build a modern state, inclusive, broadly participatory. So it's absolutely within the realm of our ability. It just has to take some sacrifices. So that being said, I know that Nigeria and China cooperation has been built also on consultation. In 2005, China engaged Nigeria as a strategic partner, along with South Africa and Egypt. These are the only countries that enjoy the status of strategic partner. Strategic partner means broad consultation prior to key international issues. So the relationship between the two countries has actually been driven by mutual consultation. If you remember, after 2015 FOCAC meeting in Johannesburg, President Buhari was the first African leader to be received in Beijing in 2016. And the platform of consultation. Now, Ambassador has talked about the institutionalization of the binational commission. This is a dialogue process, a continual dialogue process, where we break issues down and take them one-on-one on practical terms. Let us engage this process of dialogue. His Excellency has generated some practical issues on which we can drive this cooperation. He's talked about keying in major issues of our national concern, security. It talks about how do we, because at the end of the day, the challenge of herdsmen and farmers is shrinking resources. The only way you can resolve that question is expanding the resources available. If the herders have more access, how they could feed their cattle without interrupting the work of the farmers, you could have harmony and growth and development. So I think the GIST process also has been consultative driven. I think since His Excellency arrived, on almost every platform he has been, he has shared this, expanding China diplomacy, not only state to state, but among other non-state actors, non-state key stakeholders. So I believe that the process of dialogue, the process of consultation is implicit in the 5 GIST. And I believe that relevant Nigerian authorities, relevant Nigerian institutions have been briefed, hinted about the process. Like I said, it is something that we must mutually engage. No matter the goodwill of the Chinese, except the two sides mutually engage in the process, leveraging this key decision, leveraging this practical roadmap to taking the relationship to a new height. I believe that is the way to go.
It takes two to tango, really. You can interrupt, but if you can just give us a little break. Now we'll go on a break. When we come back, then you can now respond to some of the issues you talked about. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria. We'll now take your break. We'll be back in a moment.
Ministry of Works and Housing has the responsibility to help improve the quality and the quantity of the road infrastructure assets, which are the roads and the bridges and the highways. At the moment, we have over 13,000 kilometers of road network under repair, reconstruction, or rehabilitation out of the existing 35,000 kilometers of federal road network. These 13,000 kilometers are comprising about 850 different contracts which the ministry superintends across Nigeria. We are fulfilling the mandate of our ministry to expand the connectivity of Nigeria's states and by extension the towns and villages through road transport.
Give your kids winning energy. Milo Active Go. With the goodness of malts, milk, and cocoa, helps them make the most of every day. Milo, the energy to go further.
I dey enjoy Nollywood film. Orisun, PBO, AMC be my best channel. But ST Nollywood Plus, they show the latest Nollywood blockbuster on top classic bouquet. How I want to watch am?
My pikin dey enjoy 5 children's channels, but e wan come add DreamWorks on top am.
I be telenovela lover and I like ST Novella E and Starlight. But I hear say the series on ST Novella E Plus on top classic bouquet, the totori person pass wetin I dey see now. And I wan watch am. Shey I go need pay 800 naira extra?
From September 1, Star Times, they summer you better package. But no fear, we no increase price. Join this offer. Make basic bouquet subscribers just pay for 1 month and then go fit to watch 3 ogbonge extra channels from Classic Bouquet. This awoof never finish. Recharge Classic or Super Bouquet for 1 month and you fit be one of the 400 lucky people them. We go win smartphone. Terms and conditions, stay shallow. More value, same price. Star Times. Enjoy digital life.
Before we went on break, Ambassador Chu, Charles alluded to so many issues here, and these maybe need some interrogation from you. We want some greater clarification on that. Given the fact that Nigeria is a federation, we have political parties, we have so many of them, I would say, and then we have different divergent views and ideas, and so many tribes, religions, creeds, and the rest of them. When we talk about national policy issues of all these issues come up, and they sort of throughout the whole process, and at the end of the day, we find the party in power taking the lead and doing what it feels like doing, not exactly what should be in the interest of every other person, including political parties. This is not the case in China. Now, shed more light to us on this. How is the CPP able to really accommodate, tolerate, and then, be in the driving seat at the same time and then move national policy forward and achieving these things? I'm just very puzzled and amazed by this issue of getting 100 million people out of extreme poverty between 2012 and 2020. And here we are still, but, struggling with that.
First, I would like to invite you to have the opportunity to go to China to really understand what's the Chinese CPC. And really, I want to share because time is limited, I have to hit the right point. The first CPC now, this year is very special for the 100 years anniversary. We're celebrating this anniversary. Nigeria, APC, PDP, the major parties has joined the July 6th, the party summit. This is one point. That means 100 years anniversary for the CPC since the founding of 1921. The second point I want to highlight, the party politics really is a mainstream of state governance all over the world. I found less than 20 countries in the UN member, 193 countries. Now, most countries are doing the party politics. Third point, China, we have experienced every political system. If you studied history, from the ending of Qing dynasty in 1912. So nearly 100 years, we experienced a lot, the political system. For example, the Western democracy, this democratic system, and also East and also Middle East, we experienced a lot. So now, the key point here is that, just Mr. Charles mentioned, Chinese political system really is unique. Without this system, we cannot achieve the outcome of today. So what I want to share with you, the very quick, important sentence, most people believe, China, one party, so you succeed. One party system. China, we call CPC-led multi-party cooperation, not competition. There is a competition, but the cooperation is the first. That means CPC-led multi-party state or multi-party cooperation. So this is the reason why a lot of politicians in some countries, China is only one-party system. This is not good. The second point here is about one-party CPC-led multi-party cooperation and political consultative system. That means we have the consultative system in place. You know, we have 8 parties. In comparison with CPC, the other 8 parties, their major job is join. We have the organization. I think really Nigeria, you have more parties. China in the 1920s, 1930s, also we have a lot of parties, like Nigeria situation. So the multi-parties, how can let them to have a seat, to have a say, to have the power to express their thought. So we have this very special organization we call China Political Consultative Conference. These parties in this organization can take part in decision process of the nation's policy. For example, this year we are starting the 14 years 5-year plan. And also they could monitor the implementation of the policy. They could give advice to the CPC. So there is no conflict. There is a competition, but they are cooperation. So this system really does work. The key is that when I was in Abuja University, the student asked me, Ambassador, did you talk to the leaders of a Nigeria party? I share my ideas. What's the secret of CPC? I think that we cannot bring the Chinese model to Nigeria, but I think the thought, the things that we can benefit. The key is that I use the 6L. Maybe this is very easy for you to understand. Why is CPC succeed? The first, CPC loves the people. Some politicians said, oh, Chinese Communist Party is illegitimate party. It's not elected by the people. I told the students in Abuja University, because of the people, it's the people supporting, working with CPC, acquire power, get power. If you study history, the Civil War, the anti-Japanese war, we can learn the Reform War. So if you look at the history of the Communist Party, because the people, without people, they cannot get power. They are not doing the ballot power. Okay, the second L is about the liberate the people from the poverty. The third L is about learn from the people. The fourth is lead the people. The fifth is about listen to the voice of the people. The last L is leave the people. So I believe that really whatever parties, really if you try to build a relationship with the people, the 6L is okay. Chinese CPC has achieved that goal. I thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Ambassador. I would like you to also speak to this. All the points that you have made, the proposals you have, they are all fine. But there are analysts who worry about the presence of China in Africa. The influence of China is growing, and there is the fear.
I hope there's a positive influence, not a negative influence.
Where there is the fear, according to the analysts, that China may very well become the next imperial power in Africa, and that the sovereignty of African countries is being mortgaged through the various loans that African countries are taking from China, and so on and so forth. What is your reaction to this?
You just mentioned first, my quick response about the loan, the money. The difficulty, the biggest thing is how can the African countries to get money to support the development of the country? This is one thing. It's difficult. It's difficult for the weak, poor countries to get. This is the biggest financial constraint for the African continent. Not like other people say, oh, okay, China try to make a debt trap for every country. This is nonsense. It's illogical. And second point I want to make, China in Africa, you just mentioned UN seat. 26 countries support China to restore the UN seat. So that means the bedrock for China and Nigeria, this is natural bond. This is the reason why Chinese president attach great importance to build a relation between the African country and China. And I believe that every nation now is trying to do things internationally and to try to expand influence. But I assure you, the Chinese involvement, commitment to Africa is a positive influence, not interference in your domestic affairs, not try to do bad things for the people. So this is the reason I'm...
Any chance to meet any Chinese top official, especially ambassador like you, is a chance to really find out the situation of the currency swap agreement in 2018 between Nigeria and China. Has the objective, Your Excellency, of this initiative been met so far?
This is a really great initiative between China and Nigeria. We have, China has signed this document with 40 countries internationally, 3 from Africa. Nigeria is one of the 40 countries, one of 3 countries in Africa whole continent. I commend this initiative. This have a far-reaching effect for the 2 countries. What I want to highlight first is about investment. Nigeria, Chinese businessmen can use their, for example, Chinese people can use Naira. You can use Chinese RMB to invest in both countries. Second, it's good for the import-export. You can use 2 currencies to try to increase the volume of import-export. The third is very important, that you can use Chinese, the RMB being the foreign reserve. This is really good for the nation. So I believe that this is a very, very good thing for the country. Most importantly, I want to highlight that I'm working hard to try to let the Chinese commercial bank to be established in Nigeria and let Nigeria bank to go to China. This is reciprocal cooperation. I do believe that could give a big boost to the economic sectors.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Sharif, very quickly, same question to Ambassador. Should Africa and therefore Nigeria be wary of what has been labeled the impending Chinese imperialism on the continent?
No, not at all. Nigeria shouldn't actually be wary of its relationship with China. Why? Because even if it should be called imperialism, it is a good imperialism because it benefits the people. Imagine the Kaduna-Abuja, standard gauge railway during the heydays of kidnapping, along Abuja-Kaduna Road. If not because of the, the railway, provided by China. Tell me, what will have actually been of Nigerians who must actually be passing through that particular route. And I was one day traveling, I saw honorable members, from Nigeria's National Assembly in corners, hiding, as well as following that particular route. So even if you call it imperialism, it is a good imperialism. Why? Because the issue of debt, Nigerians made themselves indebted. Why? Because you borrow money, you don't actually put the money in capital project, you steal the money. And how do you actually blame, your lenders? If you borrow money, you channel the money into productive areas, of your own development. So the loans given to you is not even cash. China built, infrastructure, the railways, airports, and the rest of them. And you have actually 20 years to pay back, with even 7 years moratorium. So what are we saying here? I think Africa and Nigeria have actually rediscovered themselves, coming out from the hitherto colonial relationship from the Western world. And Africa and Nigeria have discovered a partner, a brother, and a sister, which is China. And China, if we make the argument of the win-win benefit and situation, it actually comes to us. The only thing is that if you actually have China and you have Nigeria, China being a producer or a manufacturer, definitely you actually buy from China.
Okay,
Then if you don't have something to sell, definitely there is going to be imbalance. And China encourages Nigeria and African countries to produce the more so that they come to Beijing, for economic export, as well as sell their items. So
All
this
right,
is the tech.
Dr. Sharif, thanks a lot. Sorry, we're getting pressed for time. Ambassador, I would like you to speak to this in 30 seconds. There are frequent reports of Chinese nationals operating informally in key sectors of the Nigerian economy, mining, for example. And this is worrisome to Nigerians and indeed, I believe, the Nigerian government. What are you doing with respect to this? Because such transactions are often undocumented as part of the trade, formal trade between Nigeria and China.
Okay, you mean that some Chinese nationals are doing not good things in the mining sector?
That's correct.
Okay.
And some of them, of course, have been
Quick
found receiving
response.
stolen railway slippers.
Quick response. I support the healthy, good cooperation between the Chinese company and Nigerian company in the mining sectors. This is one point. I support it. Second, I oppose some misconduct. Everybody should follow the rule of law in Nigeria. The third point I want to make here, if some Chinese nationals commit bad things, crime, they should get their punishment. This is my attitude. We cannot tolerate Chinese nationals to do not good things in Nigeria. I assure you that I will work hard. If there is, I haven't got specific cases, let me know. If some Chinese company, Chinese national do not good things, let us know. We work together to solve this problem. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Ambassador Chui Jianchun, the Ambassador of the People's Republic of China to Nigeria. We appreciate Your Excellency for being our guest on Good Morning Nigeria today.
I thank you.
All right, we also would like to thank Charles Odunaiju, who's Director of the Center for China Studies here in Nigeria. Charles, delight having you on Good Morning Nigeria. Dr. Sharif Gali Ibrahim of the Department of Political Science and International Relations at the University of Abuja. Also a pleasure having you with us on the program this morning.
Thank you for having me.
All right, very quickly, let's take our sports segment and then we sign off for the day.
Nigeria forward Taiwo Awoniyi scored twice as